In 1947, a mother out for a walk with her child in a Los Angeles neighborhood stumbled upon a sight of pure horror. Lying in a vacant lot was what she first thought was a discarded store mannequin, broken in half. It wasn't. It was the body of a young woman posed with a horrifying precision and brutally mutilated. The victim was 22-year-old Elizabeth Short, an aspiring actress who would become known to the world as the Black Dahlia. Her killer was never found, leaving behind a bizarre trail of taunts and a mystery that still haunts Hollywood to this day. This is the story of the evidence, the media frenzy, and the prime suspect who may have gotten away with one of America's most infamous murders. Before she was a sensational headline, she was Elizabeth Short. Born in Boston, she was a young woman with dark hair and a captivating smile who, like so many others, was drawn to the dream of Hollywood. She didn't have any acting credits to her name and worked odd jobs as a waitress to make ends meet, but she never let go of the hope of seeing her name in lights. She would get her wish, just not in the way she ever wanted. On the cold morning of January 15, 1947, Betty Bersinger was walking with her daughter in the Limert Park neighborhood when she saw something pale and severed in a weedy lot. Moving closer, she realized her terrible mistake. It was the naked body of a woman, staged and posed. Her corpse had been cut in two at the waist. Her arms were bent over her head, and her legs were spread apart. Most chillingly, her face had been slashed from the corners of her mouth to her ears, creating a grotesque grin known as a Glasgow smile. The official cause of death was a brain hemorrhage from blows to the head. The scene was completely bloodless. The killer had drained and cleaned the body elsewhere before dumping it just feet from the public sidewalk. The Los Angeles Police Department was called to a crime so brutal it would become a permanent scar on the city's history. The LAPD investigation started immediately, and the pressure was immense. The first step was identifying the victim. With no ID at the scene, investigators sent her fingerprints to the FBI using a primitive photo wire machine. Within an hour, they had a match: Elizabeth Short, identified from a prior arrest for underage drinking and an application for a government job. Once her name was out, the press went wild. In the cutthroat newspaper culture of the 1940s, the story was a goldmine. They nicknamed her the Black Dahlia, a moniker likely inspired by the recent film noir The Blue Dahlia and her supposed fondness for black clothing. The name stuck, turning a tragic victim into a legend of American crime. The media frenzy shaped the public narrative, often with sensational and unverified details. The investigation was one of the largest in LAPD history, eventually involving hundreds of officers who interviewed more than 150 men connected to Short, no matter how briefly. Dozens of people came forward with false confessions, desperate for a moment of morbid fame and making the police's job even harder. But the killer was careful. There was no physical evidence left at the scene, no murder weapon, and no clear motive. Every lead went cold. It was as if the killer had simply vanished. The case took another strange turn. It's been reported that the editor of the Los Angeles Examiner newspaper received a phone call from a man claiming to be the killer. He said that a package with some of Short's belongings was on its way as proof. The next day, a manila envelope arrived. It contained Elizabeth Short's birth certificate, social security card, photos, and an address book with some pages missing. Everything had been wiped clean with gasoline. Kodiko akda cross aki clear attempt to destroy any fingerprints. This was followed by a series of taunting notes sent to the police and press, made from words cut and pasted from newspapers. They mocked the police and promised to turn himself in, a promise he never kept. Then, on March 14th, a note found near Venice Beach appeared to be a suicide letter from the killer, but it was never conclusively linked to the crime. These bizarre communications painted a picture of a killer who was not only vicious but also arrogant and intelligent, playing a game with authorities he knew he was winning. In a case this sensational, almost everyone was a suspect. The investigation looked at dozens of people, from casual friends to jilted lovers. Robert Red Manley, a salesman who was one of the last people confirmed to have seen Elizabeth alive, was an early person of interest but was cleared after passing multiple polygraph tests. Mark Hansen, a wealthy nightclub owner whose name was in Short's address book, was also investigated but eventually cleared. The police were chasing ghosts. The lack of solid evidence meant they had to rely on flimsy connections and unreliable testimony. For years, the list of potential suspects grew, but a strong case could never be built against any of them. The Black Dahlia case file stayed open, a symbol of one of the department's most public and frustrating failures. It seemed the killer would remain a nameless phantom forever. Decades later, the case was blown wide open, not by the LAPD, but by a man with a chillingly personal connection to the mystery. Steve Hodel, a retired LAPD homicide detective, began looking into the case after his father died in 1999. While sorting through his father's things, he found two photographs he believes were of Elizabeth Short. This discovery launched an investigation that led him to an unthinkable conclusion. His own father, Dr. George Hill Hodel, was the Black Dahlia killer. Dr. George Hodel was a brilliant and well-respected physician in the 1940s Los Angeles with a genius-level IQ. But beneath the polished surface was a much darker side. He was known for a decadent lifestyle, a fascination with surrealist art that often depicted dismembered women, and a history of disturbing behavior. In 1949, 2 years after the Dahlia murder, Hodel became a person of interest in the case after his own daughter accused him of sexual assault. While he was acquitted of that charge, the investigation put him on the LAPD's radar. Investigators noted that his training as a physician was one possible explanation for the precise way Short's body was bisected, although other experts have since debated the level of surgical skill required. As Steve Hodel dug deeper, the evidence against his father grew. He discovered that after the 1949 trial, the LAPD had bugged his father's home for several weeks. The transcripts from those wiretaps buried in the district attorney's files for 50 years were explosive. On the tapes, Dr. Hodel was recorded discussing the murder. In a chilling recording from February 1950, Hodel is heard saying, "Supposing I did kill the Black Dahlia. They couldn't prove it now. They can't talk to my secretary anymore because she's dead." The tapes also recorded him talking about paying off police officers and seeming to reference other crimes, painting a picture of a man who thought he was above the law. Steve Hodel argues that the murder itself happened at his family's home, the famous Sowden house, and that his father transported the body in cement sacks. In recent years, a cadaver dog brought to the house reportedly alerted to the scent of human remains in the basement. Despite the wiretap evidence, George Hodel was never formally charged with Elizabeth Short's murder. Shortly after the surveillance, he left the country and lived in Asia for decades, never facing justice for the crime. The case of the Black Dahlia remains one of the most disturbing, unsolved mysteries in American history, even with the mountain of circumstantial evidence pointing to George Hodel. The case officially remains open, and other compelling theories exist. What do you think? Was a respected doctor one of most sadistic killers? Let us know your theories in the comments, and if you want more deep dives into history's greatest unsolved cases, be sure to like and subscribe. For over 75 years, the ghost of Elizabeth Short has haunted Los Angeles. She arrived in the city chasing a Hollywood dream, but found a real-life nightmare, becoming the unwilling star of a noir tragedy with no final act. Her life was cut short, and her killer was never brought to justice. The mystery of the Black Dahlia is more than just a cold case. It's a dark story about power, corruption, and the shadows of Hollywood's golden age. While a definitive legal answer may be lost to time, the case against one man has become too loud to ignore. The question may no longer be who killed the Black Dahlia, but why the case has never officially been solved.